The two-child limit is imposed on Muslim families in a troubled province in Myanmar. The government has blamed a growing Rohingya population for stirring tensions with local Buddhists. But is it a violation of human rights or a justifiable measure to maintain security? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the programme. I'm Jane Dutton. They've been described as among the world's least wanted people and one of the most persecuted, the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar. And a government-appointed commission says their rapidly growing population is a serious threat that's making ethnic Buddhists feel insecure. Hundreds of people were killed and many Muslim villages burned down in communal violence in Myanmar's Rakhine state over the past year. Rights groups have accused the government of an organised campaign of ethnic cleansing against the Rohingyas. Now, local officials have limited family size in the townships of Butidang and Mandau to 2 children and banned polygamy. The restrictions will apply only to Rohingya Muslims and not to any other ethnic group. The Rohingya have been classified as stateless since 1982. And last July, the government didn't include them on an official list of 135 recognised ethnic groups. That means they can't claim Myanmar citizenship, they can't travel without permission, they can't own land, and now some of them can't even have more than 2 children. Let's bring in our guests to discuss this. In London, Tun Kin, human rights activist and president of Burmese Rohingya Organisation UK. From Bangkok, Phil Robertson, deputy director for Asia, Human Rights Watch. Tun, what do you make of this?
Well, this is actually, to drive out the Rohingya people from Arakan. This is their ethnic cleansing policy against Rohingya people to get rid of from Arakan. What the president thinks he have policies for a long time. What his own proposed policy to send Rohingya third countries, expelling from Burma. The other way, this is a kind of diversion that distract the attention of Rohingya genocide from international community. So this is what he want to show to the international community. That is what he want to implement it, in my opinion.
Why would he want to show this to the international community? I mean, does he think it's smart, it's clever?
Well, because now they want to show that the international community that Rohingyas are much population, but this is a kind of baseless accusation they want to do. But international community already well known, as far as we know, that genocide against Rohingya is practiced by President Thein Sein government. So this is the only way he just want to divert the attention of Rohingya genocide.
And is this a done deal? There's no going back. I mean, were you aware of this conversation to limit it to 2 children, to Muslims there having 2 children?
Well, we are aware of this, yes. This is what commission report, which was backed by President Thein Sein government. Internal commission report have mentioned this. Instead of, leading for peaceful coexistence, leading for peaceful peace and stability and political solution, they are mentioning, limiting of 2-child policy, increasing security force, and these things are heading towards more to get rid of Rohingyas and to drive out Rohingya people from Arakan.
Phil, from a human rights point of view, what's your perspective?
Well, this is a policy that's clearly discriminatory. It's a policy that has existed for a number of years. It actually goes back as far as 2005. There have been township regulations limiting births, particularly of newlywed couples, and also marriage restrictions, requirements to get permission to marry. These processes have been highly embarrassing and discriminatory against the Rohingya. And it has, as your other guest indicated, been a driving force for pushing Rohingya out of Arakan state. There have been surveys taken by Médecins Sans Frontières and other NGOs on the ground who have found that the marriage restrictions and these restrictions on the number of children that a Rohingya family can have do contribute to people feeling that they must flee the country.
So if they see this as some sort of
to
success in getting Rohingyas, they've thought, well, if they turn this into a law, it'll have even more of a dramatic impact.
Well, I mean, this is a discriminatory policy. It's a sort of one of the key areas that the Rohingya complain about as in terms of a policy, and it certainly will contribute to a continuing exodus from the state because people, want to marry the people they love, and they want to be able to have families. And what we're seeing with this kind of policy is an intrusive state presence to try to control the birth rates, connected to, according to the Arakan state spokesperson, Rakhine Investigation Commission recommendation. In fact, that commission did not recommend involuntary measures of this sort, but what you have is the extremists on the ground, the Arakanese Buddhists who are trying to push the Rohingya out, dictating the terms of debate, and the government of Burma essentially allowing them. So what has to happen now is the government in Naypyidaw, the national government, has to stand up and say, look, this policy it violates various different international human rights standards that we are going to accede to. It certainly discriminates against Rohingya children who are born without status if they're if they're the third child, the fourth child of a family. And it is something that we're going to now have to revise to end this clearly abusive and discriminatory policy.
Tun, Phil suggested that the national government stand up to this policy and says it has no place in the country. Any chance of the national government doing that? And if they don't, how do you see this policy being enforced?
Well, this policy, it's been going actually for a long time, I should say, in northern Arakan state, particularly where mostly Rohingyas are living. Restriction of movement, marriage, education, things, serious human rights violations were going on, particularly restriction on marriage are taking for long, 3 years to get a permission. So international community did not know about it. Currently, this is officially, they are moving more forward, ethnic cleansing policy against Rohingya. So what we can see is they are they will drive out the Rohingya people from Arakan. That is their state organized policy. That's why they are also putting this two-child policy is the problem of the recent violence in 2012. This is also, they want to hide pre-planned violence, what they did in 2012, June and October. So they want to hide that issue, the pre-planned violence, to get rid of Rohingyas. That's what they did by state-organized ethnic cleansing policy. They want to divert it, so they will be implementing whatever way they can. So this is very important here.
Okay, Phil, I was just going to bring Phil in here. I mean, how worried are you at how they're going to implement this policy? I mean, there's been high levels of violence against the Rohingyas. Are we talking, sterilization here? How far is it going to go?
Well, that's an excellent question. And if the government of Burma continues to allow the extremists to control the terms of debate and discussion on this in Arakan state, it could go quite far. Our feeling is that this is a very, very serious problem. This is an indication of how much the Rakhine state government is prepared to twist and try to convert the recommendations from the Rakhine Investigation Commission to their own purposes. It's particularly chilling when one ethnic group starts talking about limiting the births of another ethnic group because it makes them nervous. And that is essentially the line of argument that the Rakhine Investigation Commission took. Now what we have is a reiteration of a policy of limiting the number of births of Rohingya. What that's going to do is going to not only cause greater problems for families, but it is also going to cause women who are feared of being perhaps arrested or harassed by the local authorities, particularly by the Nasaka, which is a border patrol unit that is particularly abusive and who will play a major role in implementing this policy, that because they'd be afraid of that kind of intimidation, they could be also deciding to induce abortions themselves. This is something actually that Médecins Sans Frontières has again found, that the fear of the local authorities tracking down women who are having more than 2 children has direct impact on women's health, and a very negative impact, because these women are self-inducing abortions, and then if something goes wrong, they do not have the permission to travel out of the areas where they are, and complications in such situations often will equal death. So,
I'm sure it can. No,
this
I mean,
policy
while this
is not just about abusing rights, but
awful policy is put on centre stage, a policy that both of you say has been going on for some time now. Myanmar has been raising its profile on the international stage. Japan's Prime Minister arrived on Friday for the first visit by a Japanese leader for 36 years. And last week, Myanmar's president became the first leader to visit the White House in nearly half a century, making this commitment.
We must forge a new and more inclusive national identity. Myanmar people of all ethnic backgrounds and all faiths, Buddhists, Christian, Hindu and other, must feel a part of this new national identity. We must end all forms of discrimination, and we must ensure that not only intercommunal violence is brought to a halt, but that all perpetrators are brought to justice.
And that drew this response from the US president.
I also shared with President Sein our deep concern about communal violence that has been directed at Muslim communities inside of Myanmar. The displacement of people, the violence directed towards them needs to stop, and we are prepared to work in any ways that we can with both the government of Myanmar and the international community to ensure that people are getting the help that they need, but more importantly, that their rights and their dignity is recognized over the long term.
Chun, there you've got the US president saying that it's important that people, Rohingyas, their rights and their dignity is respected. And then just days after that, your president introduces this policy. What do you think he is trying to say to the US president, to the rest of the world?
Well, I should say President Thein Sein is a former military general. He is a world-class liar. He is just try to get some support and to lift up sanctions. He's just saying something what whatever support he can get. But international, like US government, they have to see what is happening to the ground particularly. They should not go straight away that far relaxing sanctions and these things, because we are repeatedly calling for US government, UK and OIC, EU and UN international communities to calling for international investigation to establish the true facts and to bring those responsible to justice and to stop more further violence against Rohingya people. But
and what sort of response are you getting
US
to your
country
calls? I mean, I know you've
that.
spent some time with David Cameron, the UK Prime Minister. What are they saying to you when you raise these issues faced by the Rohingyas and at the same time stepping into the country and opening up and doing business with it? How do they justify that?
Well, we are very frustrated about it. It is encouraging more to go forward ethnic cleansing against Rohingya and other Muslims of Burma. What is happening today? They have to look at what is happening situation on the ground, Arkhana State and other parts of Burma where Muslims are living. So this is very shocking, and if perhaps, they should go actions to action, but they are lifting up sanctions straight away, and they are not looking at what human rights abuses are taking place. Still, the ethnic cleansing and human rights watch are well documented. Crime against humanity is perpetrated by President Thein Sein government, so they're not listening on it. What we want to call to the U.S. country and others is actually they should support on UN Commission of Inquiry to find out the true facts what happened in Arkan state. They should raise about 1982 Citizenship Law Amendment. They should also call to restore Rohingya ethnic rights and citizenship rights, where Rohingyas are original and native people of Arkan. So these kind of things need to be done to also provide humanitarian aid all the areas of Arkan where Rohingyas are facing of shortage of humanitarian aid. You see, children are dying, many women are facing to deliver even their babies. So this is what U.S. government and they should raise up instead of lifting up sanctions.
But what about movement within your own country? Excuse me, jumping in here. If we look at the opposition leader, or rather the lack of, Aung San Suu Kyi has been criticised for failing to speak out strongly in defence of the Muslim community. But she was drawn after 7 Muslim men were convicted on Tuesday of killing a Buddhist monk during unrest in March. They were handed sentences of between 2 years to life in prison. Violence spread to 15 other towns and villages. No Buddhists have been charged.
There is no transparency in Myanmar's justice system, and the administrative branch has too much influence. The judicial system has to be independent to be credible.
Phil, what's happened to her? Is she working with you in any way?
Well, unfortunately, Aung San Suu Kyi has missed many opportunities to speak out about the situation in Arakan state. This is not for a lack of trying on our part to engage with her to talk about these issues. Unfortunately, she has decided to duck this issue. And it's a shame because her type of moral leadership to change the terms of debate about the Rohingya is what is exactly needed in Burma right now. To basically put these rights issues back on the front burner in Arakan state. As we've pressed forward on these issues, we've seen an amazing reluctance by the government of Burma to deal with accountability for the abuses we documented last year in Arakan state, the ethnic cleansing and crimes against humanity. And in fact, now the government of Burma has had its Rakhine Investigation Commission, which also took a pass on accountability, which essentially ignored the issue. So
Isn't
we
that
would
because
support the idea
the government,
of
the
having
military
some sort
have been
of
accused of being complicit behind a lot of this brutal action?
Well, I mean, this is part of the issue, but that's why we think now that there has to be some sort of international component of an investigation into what is happening in Arakan state, because essentially the domestic Burmese mechanisms have been tried and have failed on the issue of accountability. They've had their chance, and they're not prepared politically to move forward, nor is Aung San Suu Kyi prepared to take up this kind of call. So, at this point, it's important for the UN, perhaps the Special Rapporteur or the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, to play a leading role in calling for an international investigation into what has happened in Arakan state over the past year and a half.
Okay, let me bring
this
Tun
is
in
something
here.
that should be taken up at the Human Rights Council in Geneva, and we're hoping that actually that will happen in the coming weeks, that there will be some sort of resolution that will be brought forward by the OIC or by other governments to press this specific issue, that there needs to be a real credible investigation and accountability process in Arakan state.
Okay, Tun, I'd like to go back to Aung San Suu Kyi's, what some are saying, unforgivable silence on this matter. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to talk to her. I mean, I know that she's said that the Rohingyas should remain within Myanmar's borders, and she said that they're not Burmese and so are not her concern.
Well, surprisingly, it is very, very, a tragedy for the Rohingya people. We have been supported National League for Democracy for a long time, since 1990, and our Rohingya parties were alliance with her, and we Rohingya organization, particularly Burmese Rohingya organization, UK and other Rohingya organizations worldwide, we did campaign to release Aung San Suu Kyi, and including Aung San Suu Kyi and other political prisoners. We working together for the interest of future Federal Union of Burma, and Rohingya were recognized as an ethnic group during democratic period. And what I have seen in front of British Parliament, where I was there, she has been talking that the best progressive time in Burma was parliamentary democratic period. On that time, Rohingya was as an ethnic group, but she is not saying anything today. Instead, she is, silent. So this is encouraging more to the Burmese public to see the Rohingyas as a stranger or illegal immigrant. She can speak up. In the case of injustice, she can't be silent at all. She can't be neutral. She should stand up and she should speak up. She was respected by all the people of Burma, and also she's an icon of Burma.
She's certainly not keen to do that, or hasn't expressed any desire to do that. Can I just quickly bring in a fact here? We've been talking about Burma and Myanmar, and when the military junta took over the country in 1989, they called it Myanmar. They didn't put it to the people. They didn't put the name to the people, but the UN does recognize it as Myanmar, if that's led to any confusion. Now, as you can imagine, we've had strong reaction to this on Facebook. In fact, every time we talk about the Rohingyas, we have strong reaction on Facebook. Gail Taylor writes, to pick on one group based on their religious beliefs, no matter how much you disagree with it, is wrong. It just encourages them to hide their faith and build up resentment. Bella Yakubu says the whole world will be silent about this two-child limit since it's Muslims, but if it's other religions that are given this treatment, the whole world will come out and protest. But Melchior Muller-Spuder tells us you guys don't understand. Myanmar is enforcing these policies because they want an ethnic civil war. And the world is welcoming the present government of Burma from east to west, says Amir Butt, aiding and sharing dinner with them. We are living in a shameful world. And Amir Butt might have a point there. Phil, it's a shameful world. A lot of people talking about what's going on in the country is reprehensible. But how would you suggest this issue is dealt with? There are so many people within Myanmar who find the Rohingyas despicable. They don't want to live with them, from high command all the way down to the streets. So what's the solution?
Well, I mean, ultimately, these people are going to have to recognize that Burma, to be successful, is multi-ethnic, multi-faith, and that many different groups are going to have to be able to live together. What we're seeing on the ground in Arakan State is essentially no commitment by the national government to reconciliation between the Rakhine and the Rohingya. We've essentially seen no progress on the ground since the violence that took place last year in terms of trying to reintegrate people back to areas where they fled from and trying to tone down or stop the hate speech that is coming against the Rohingya. So the government is failing on its basic duties to protect all people in the country. Ultimately, we're going to have to start with the course of the...
Tun, what would you suggest that the government do? And maybe the Buddhists do feel that they are in a position to respond because they feel hard done by.
Well, this is the government. The government could do anything. The government could stop any attacks. This is the government state organized policy. They're going forward. What we can see here, this government have they can. If they want to, if they're willing to, they can stop anytime. Today, you can see anti-Rohingya, anti-Muslim, campaigning issues are going on everywhere in Burma, in parliament, in military generals, in public. You can see everywhere. So, the government have to, introduce anti-racism or anti-racism laws. These kind of things should introduce for the long-lasting peace if they want to see in Burma.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for talking to us about this two-child policy imposed on Muslims in certain parts of Myanmar. Thanks very much to my guests, Tun Kin and Phil Robertson. Thank you very much for joining us, the viewers. You can find this programme and many more at aljazeera.com. Just follow the links for programmes and Inside Story, and you can leave us your comments there too. From me, Jane Dutton, and the team, goodbye for now.